a few dogs here. Each one of them, of course, always wants the attention. Dozer doesn't normally come in here. Okay. Oh, let's come back over here, and we'll go to full desktop. There we go. Hey, good morning, folks. Of course, I love seeing a cute dog in the morning. Who doesn't love seeing a cute dog in the morning, right? Oh my goodness, how could life be better? Okay, so we're getting there, folks. We are getting there. So today we get to talk about managers. Okay, so let me just kind of remind you how we got here while I clean my glasses. We learned all about capitalism and how capitalism came about and so forth. And then we kind of talked about the problems of capitalism and the things that kind of make it less than optimal, which are many and multivariate. Well, today we're going to start talking about some of the ways that we have tried to solve the problems. And this comes about primarily through today's lecture around management. We're actually going to cover 3 readings today. 2 of them kind of have a humanistic approach to management, and one is Frederick Taylor, and he's going to be telling us about time motion studies and so forth, okay? I know, I keep messing with my glasses, and it's really distracting to you. I apologize. Okay, but now let's pause for a moment and explore why we're talking about this. So, up until these guys came along, there were only 3 requirements one needed to be a manager. No, it wasn't education. No, it wasn't experience. It was, first of all, you had to be related to the owner. A son-in-law, a son, a brother, a nephew, a cousin, who knows what. Had to be related. Second is he had to be male. Only males were managers. And third, you had to be white. So in order to be a manager, you had to be a white male related to the owner. So nepotism to the umpteenth degree. Well, as you might imagine, this meant we had a lot of really crappy managers, because it wasn't a matter of, well, what management style do you follow? What theories do you follow? How do you practice these things? How were you trained and brought up in the industry? It was just, I'm there to break skulls, okay? Well, the folks that we're going to explore today, they said, yeah, that's not cool. This is not good. This is not the way that we should be managing. We need to look at management in a different light, okay? So that is what we are going to explore today. And yeah, it got me to the right place. Now, we've got 3 readings, so I have a feeling that we're going to be busting these light bulbs again. But that's cool. That's great. All right. Let's go ahead and start with the first one. So, Henri Fayol, yeah, French name, right? General in industrial management. A little bit about this guy. So, he saw a need for a systematic approach to training managers. We had all these managers coming in, remember, related, white males, but none of them were trained. And if those who were trained, it didn't really follow a systematic approach. It was not a repeatable approach to training and so forth. Now, as it says here, he didn't so much come up with theories of management. We'll be talking about the theories here later on. He just saw that these managers were poorly qualified and he wanted to find a way to help get them up to speed. All right? So, he said something that you are going to hear a lot today. You're going to hear this a lot from at least the first two authors, right? The managerial function finds its only outlet through members of the organization, the body corporate, while the other functions bring into play material and machines. The managerial function operates only on the personnel. Okay, so what's he saying? First thing that you're going to be hearing a lot. The thing he's saying here is, as a manager, your success or failure should be on the success or failure of your employees. So by definition, if you're a successful manager, that means that your people are successful. They're thriving, they're doing well, they're happy in their work, they're providing to their customers high quality, high productivity, efficiency, all that sort of stuff. On the other hand, if your people are struggling, that's on you. Okay? So that's the first thing. The next thing that you're going to hear a lot is nothing is rigid when it comes to management. He said, the soundness and good working order of the body corporate, the employees, depend on a certain number of conditions termed indiscriminately principles, laws, rules. For preference, I shall adopt the term principles, while disassociating it from any suggestion of rigidity. For there is nothing rigid or absolute in management affairs. It is all a question of proportion. So, in other words, every day is a different day when you're a manager. It's not like you're working with computers and ones and zeros and tools and engines and machines. People are different. The circumstances are different. Things. Okay, so we've got Christy, we've got Brittany, Christina, Sid, David, Colin, Jocelyn. You are a different kind of employee on Mondays than on Fridays, than on Tuesdays, than on Thursdays. Mondays, you have the Monday blue. Fridays, you're kind of trunky and you want to get out early. Tuesday, maybe you're a little... In other words, even the day of the week affects how we perform as employees, okay? I should have said me too, because it's the same for me too. So everything is different. Nothing is rigid. Seldom do we have to apply the same principle twice in identical conditions. Allowance must be made for different changing circumstances. For men, just as different and changing, and for many other variable elements. As I said, the variable elements such as day of the week even. Now, Brittany right off says... makes sense. Our days will not always be the same. It's, everything it's different, right? Good example on Thursdays, right? Life is fluid. Absolutely. And it's kind of a funny thing. And everybody's different. So when I tell you what I am like, this is not saying what I think you are like or what I think you should be like, all right? So I'm pretty on fire on Mondays because things have stacked up. I want to start the week right and so on and so forth. Tuesdays, I'm really on fire. I get a lot done on Tuesdays. Wednesdays are a little different for me because of my wife's schedule. Thursdays, I don't get quite as much done on Thursdays. And Fridays? Holy hell. If I can stay under the radar on Fridays, I stay under the radar. So, yeah, everything's fluid. Okay, you guys get it. So, therefore, principles are flexible. Life is fluid. right, Brittany? Therefore, principals are flexible and capable of adaptation to every need. Is a matter of knowing how to make use of them, which is a difficult art requiring intelligence, experience, decision, and proportion. In other words, good management is an art that requires intelligence, experience, decision, proportion. And so he's making the case for why we should be training managers in a more systematic fashion rather than just saying, hey, he's my son-in-law, he's your manager now. Christy says the productivity of my staff on Fridays is little to zero. They just can't wait to go home, right? Yeah, I get it. And you as a manager should get it. Right? You kind of like, that's not the day to give them work. Normally, I'm doing great, says Brittany, on Tuesdays. But today, you didn't sleep. Oh, yeah. That's going to make it tough. I'm with you. I sleep a little bit better. My wife has trouble sleeping. And so each morning it's kind of like a roll of the dice on what kind of day she's going to have. But she's good. She is really good at managing regardless. Okay. Now, in the reading, Fayol offers several principles of management. I am only going to cover a handful of them, okay? I'm going to cover ones that I think are still kind of being worked through today in today's world. And of course, they're the ones on the final, and you want all those and so on and so forth. But we're just going to cover a few of them and then go into some depth on them. Jocelyn, way to my office counteracts Thursday, Friday productivity is when we start to get out early, which parents also like. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. They love it, right? Or not. Let's do this one today. So, yes, excellent. Yeah, condolences. Big fan of the 4-day work week. Yes. We should all be on the 4-day work week. Okay. We're going to keep going on this. We got 3 readings, but you guys are absolutely right. I would love the 4-day work week. Okay. Now, the first thing he talks about is unity of command. Not the first thing, the fourth thing, but the first thing we're going to cover. Unity of command, which basically says you should have, for all intents and purposes, one boss. You should have one boss. Because otherwise, you get mixed messages from different bosses. You're not sure what the priorities are, either long-term or short-term for the day, and so forth. Now, the reason I highlight this one is corporate America still struggles with this, especially in the tech industry, if you work in the tech industry. I can't speak for others, but I can speak for tech. They really like something called matrix marketing, and matrix management, okay? Matrix management says, okay, you report to one boss, sure, fine, but that boss actually doesn't have much to do with your day-to-day life. The way it works is you are assigned out to, say, like 4 projects. Let's say you're assigned out to 4 projects, so you spend 25% of your day working on each one of these projects. So that means the project manager and the project champion, they are a boss in regards to your work on that project. So that means that you're getting orders and direction and prioritizing work with the help of 5 different managers. Really confusing, can be really challenging. And so this is something that Fayol would not have liked, and yet it's still something that we do a great deal today. So that's why I offer this one up for food for thought. Now, over here we have, let's see, Let's see. Or design industry, says Christina. Collaboration is what they rebranded the four bosses as. Great example. Great point. Way too many cooks in the kitchen, says David. Yes, and this can be problematic. So Fayol liked to warn against this. Another one that he said is you kind of need to understand that by definition, an employee is subordinating their own interests in support of the organizational objectives. So let me put that in English for you, okay? Here's the thing. You as an individual, right? David, Christina, Brittany, Jocelyn, Christy, all you folks, you have things you want to do. You want to do. This is what I'd like to do with my day. I'd like to win the lottery so I could go off and do all the things I want to do. But you need the money. So you subordinate these interests. You push these personal goals and desires of yours aside so that for 8 hours a day, you can pretend, for lack of a better word, pretend to embrace the objectives of the organization, right? Yes, dear organization. While I'm at work, I will embrace your objectives and work for your interest. So, dear manager, dear organization, I will push aside my own interests and work on behalf of yours during this time that you're paying me money. Okay. So, why does Fayol feel like we need to point this out? He says, listen, these individual interests are going to come into play whether you like it or not. They're going to seep in. And we need to help and support employees to really embrace these organizational interests and to connect their own. So, for example, he mentioned some of these things. I don't agree with all of them, but I'm going to mention the ones he does. He talks about ignorance. In other words, if the person doesn't know how to do the work that you're asking them to do, or doesn't know what the objectives are, they're not going to do them. If I don't know what the objective is, how am I going to work toward the objective? Therefore, you, dear manager, part of your job is to educate, inform, and communicate with the employee. The employees also have personal ambitions, right? They want to work up in the company, or they want to do this little side gig over here. They want to start this company. They want to do these skunk works with another department. You have to understand these ambitions are in place. And if you don't understand what they are or align them with the organization's ambitions, then they're going to go off and do their own thing. It's just the way it is, right? Selfishness, well, I don't really buy into selfishness and laziness. But if I'm not inspired by the work, I'm going to be lazy and selfish. I don't consider that lazy and selfish. As an employee, if you're not inspiring me with the objective, then I'm going to find other things to do, or I'm going to do nothing. And that's not lazy and selfish. It's a lack of inspiration. Therefore, you, dear manager, need to provide the vision that I need to get stoked up about what I'm doing. So this is what Fayol is talking about here. Over here we have, let's see here. It can be hard to get started sometimes. Yes, isn't that okay? So, Colin, an object at rest tends to stay at rest, while an object in motion tends to stay in motion. It's hard to get started sometimes. I really like that. Some people just don't have a sense of urgency. And Jocelyn, you're right. And Tyler agrees with you. If you don't get that there's a sense of urgency, then it's hard to get that. So, for example, and I'm just going to give an example. This is not Jacques Hughes. Okay, I'm not coming down on you. next semester, I'm going to work a lot harder to try to create a sense of urgency for students to start using AI on a daily basis. I mean daily, and in a variety of ways, not just, hey, help me write this paper. There are so many ways that you can use AI to help you out. But you have to go off and research. So I'm going to do this whole video series to teach students all the different ways that they can use AI, very distinct ways. Because I think, like what I think matters, right? But I think students need to feel a sense of urgency that if you're not learning this stuff, you're going to get behind. But it would be my job as the professor, or my job as a manager, to convey that sense of urgency, right? So Jocelyn, as you point out, if you're just kind of I'm gonna rant for just a moment, like I haven't been ranting already. Get over it, Lon. If we professors keep giving the same assignments in the same ways as we've done over the last 20 years, that do not account for new technology, new ways of doing things, and new AI, and so on and so forth, then we are not communicating a sense of urgency. So if you're taking a class with me this summer, you're going to see some changes, or in the fall especially, because I do a lot of experimenting in the summer, and then I decide what to keep and what to toss out for the fall. Okay, let's keep going. All right. Next one that I want to cover is remuneration. If you ever work in finance or HR, you will come across the word remuneration an awful lot. Otherwise, it's just a fancy-ass way of saying compensation, pay. How you are paid, how you are compensated, how you are remunerated for the work you do. Now, what he says here is pretty straightforward, but then we're going to get to some details. He says, remuneration of personnel is the price of services rendered. It should be fair and, as far as possible, afford satisfaction to both personnel and firm. In other words, the perfect pay system is one in which the employer says, I think this is fair pay for fair work, and the employee says, I agree, this is fair pay for fair work. Okay, so that's a perfect situation. The rate of remuneration depends first on circumstances independent of the employer's will and the employee's worth, and then things dependent. We're going to leave the quote for a moment, and I'm going to do a deep dive into this to show you what he's talking about. First of all, how much you are paid, you can't control, and the employer can't control. So what are things that you can't control? So, for example, labor supply. Right now, we checked yesterday in another class, the unemployment rate in Utah is 2.2%. That is stupidly low. All right. Now, what does that mean for you? Or it means right now, this is the best time to be working. This is the best time to look for another job if you're unhappy in your job, because that means there are so few people in the labor market that if I'm an employer, the only way I can get another employee is if I steal that employee from somebody else. Now, you might say, well, there's 2.2% of the population who doesn't have a job. Yeah, but when the unemployment rate is 2.2%, employers don't look at the 2.2 who are unemployed, because in a market like this, odds are if you're unemployed, there's a reason. So rather, they try to steal employees from other employers, which means more pay, more benefits, and so forth. Geographic differences, unless you move to a region where you're paid more and so forth. This is just kind of dependent upon the market. Competition. How much competition is there for your skill set or for the industry? Also, the industry health or image. What this means is that when an employer is looking to hire someone, the image of that company, it matters. So, for example, if you got identical job offers from Google and Yahoo, you would probably choose Google just because of the image of the company. By the way, David says, wait, so we're supposed to make enough to account for cost of living relative to the area? What a concept. Yeah, actually, the funny thing about that, David, is in HR, we'll let him do his screaming here. In HR, we call that a geodifferential, geographic differential, or geodiff. It's like a shift differential, but instead it's a geodifferential, which means that if you live in these really expensive areas, you get a geodifferential of, say, 7%. And if you're in a cheap area, you get no geodifferential. That's with companies who take this compensation seriously. But of course, David, as you know, not all do. Okay, so those are things that, and of course, collective bargaining. Now, you can't control for those. What can you control for in upping your paycheck? Well, training and education. And you're like, well, no, duh, that's why I'm here right now. Training and education, statistically, in aggregate, increases your odds of, or increases your earning potential. Skills, experience. Now, by the way, skills are skills. They don't, I'll tell you what, I have video skills. Now, I have never been paid to do video skills. I haven't taken formal training. Well, I did do some classes, but this is all self-taught. Skills can be self-taught. You don't have, I can demonstrate to an employer that I have video skills, and so they don't care about the piece of paper. They just care about the skills. Same thing goes for experience. It does not need to be paid experience for it to be experience. So I have experience as a videographer, as a publisher of videos. I've never had a job publishing videos, but I have the experience. If you have experience through volunteer work or church or synagogue or mosque work, that's experience. Even though you weren't paid, it is still experience. So just something to think about. Your performance, and then, of course, level of responsibility. Real quick, by the way, Brittany, yeah, if you're looking for a better job, now's the time to be doing this. It really is. David also added cost of living inflation went about, 10 to 12 over the last year. Got a 3.5 living. Yeah. So what you're talking about there, David, which in many organizations is absolutely true, it's called your real income. There is your earned income, how much is on the bottom of that paycheck. The real income is what can that amount buy you? And in many cases, the amount that food, rent, and, flat screen TVs and so forth, what it can buy you has dropped because of inflation. So in many ways, a lot of folks have lost real income, even if their income went up by, say, 3.5%. Now, David, it's on you. In this kind of market, you could look for other options. And if you are disinclined to look for other options, that means that there's something that your current employer is offering that is causing you to stick around. Or because of, and I know your circumstances and so forth, your wife and what she's doing and so on and so forth, kind of like, well, I want to leave options open for that. So it's a complicated formula. Christy says internships while you're in school. yes, internships are a phenomenal way of gaining experience. And yeah, as Christy says, you hire many of the interns. Internships, I've done many, as in I hired interns, right, when I was in the corporate world. It's basically test driving an employee. I get an employee either free or at a ridiculously low rate, and I test drive them. And if they work out great, then after the internship, I hire them. So great way to get the experience. Okay, moving on. Now, another thing that he talks about is the scholar chain or line of authority, the hierarchy of the organization. Before this reading, I never heard the word scholar chain. And outside of this reading, I have never heard the term scholar as in scholar chain. So, whereas remuneration, you should learn that word and use the word remuneration in business. I don't know that you need to learn scholar chain. In any case, we're going to talk about what he means. By the way, David says there's more to a job than pay. Yes. But it makes it hard to keep up with the cost. Yes. Right? I get it. You and I both work for the state. We both work for the state in different ways, right? But at the end of the day, it's Governor Cox and whomever who signs our paycheck. So, I feel you. All right. Now, scholar chain, what he basically says here is, okay, with this unity of command, we should have a really clear line of authority. Who reports to whom, who reports to whom, who reports to whom, and communication should go up and down that chain. However, he also says the chain should be flexible enough that people can communicate up and down the chain without having to go through each and every step. So the CEO or the vice president should be able to communicate with people at the bottom, and people at the bottom should be able to communicate with the vice president, the CEO, and so on and so forth. That way, the line of authority is in place, but it is not getting in the way of good communication. So that's what he's talking about there. Okay, here is my favorite one. Initiative. All right, let's read this one. Thinking out a plan and ensuring its success is one of the keenest satisfactions for an intelligent person to experience. It is also one of the most powerful stimulants of human endeavor. This power of thinking out and executing is what is called initiative. And freedom to propose and execute belongs to each in its way to initiative. At all levels of the organizational ladder, zeal and energy on the part of employees are augmented by initiative. I could not agree with this more. What he's saying is that every single person in the organization, from the very top to the very bottom, should be allowed, should have the autonomy to observe, propose, develop, and execute a plan to bring about change, to take the initiative, to innovate, to improve. If all an employee is expected to do is push the buttons, which we've talked about, and not exercise initiative, then, as Adam Smith would say, they will become as stupid as is possible for a beast to become, for a person to become. So managers need to understand, according to Fayol, that it's not just your job to tell them what to do in every single facet and to say, I know what I'm doing, you're just the employee, you shut up, I lead, you follow, I think, you do. All the employees need to think and figure out ways to improve things. Now, Fayol would agree with this. Our next reading is going to agree with this. Our third reading would not agree with this. Just so you know. Okay, let's go on to our second reading. All right. maybe get up and do a little stretch. We'll do the juggling break after this one, but we got Fayol, Fayol all set. Now we get to move on to Douglas McGregor. Now, Douglas McGregor, as you can see from this picture here, he's more modern, all right? He's also a real mover and shaker in the area of organizational psychology, which is my area of expertise. My PhD is in industrial organizational psychology, whatever. So he's kind of a big mover and shaker in this. As I mentioned, as it says here, he's the founder of Theory X and Theory Y. We're not going to talk about Theory X and Theory Y, but if you continue on with your degree in management and so forth, you will come across this, okay? Like Fayol, he takes a very humanistic approach to management. He's like, we're not dealing with machines here. We're dealing with people, and we need to understand how we are managing people. So I told you this idea was going to come up a lot, which is nothing is written in stone, right? Have to be flexible, as Brittany pointed out, right? He was talking about how one time he was doing some consulting work and he was looking at this manual that this company used for training their managers. And he said, the manual for a supervisory training program in one large company suggests that the instructor point out by analogy and example that the principles of organization are like the laws of physics, which he completely rejects. Completely rejects this. Okay? And they're not like the laws of physics at all. Things are always changing. In fact, he takes some real issues. I think he takes like 3 or 4 issues with the classical organizational theory, right? First, he doesn't like the fact that a lot of management training programs are derived from inappropriate models. So, for example, and we still do this today, by the way, we still do this today. He says, there'll be management and, leadership training that is based on, say, the Bible or The Art of War by Sun Tzu or The Book of Five Rings by Musashi, okay? He says this is wrong, okay? Now, if you want to start a Christian religion, Bible's a great way to go. That is not the same as managing people. If you want to think strategically about war and figure out how to win a battle, The Art of War is a great way to go, but that's not the same as managing people. If you want to learn how to take a prisoner while fighting on the battlefield of medieval Japan using 2 swords, and yes, that's what it is. I've read this. Musashi's Book of Five Rings is a great way to go. That's not the same as managing people. And yet, you go to YouTube and you'll see a million videos about how to use these and any other number of books to guide in leadership. Now, I will say I've read all of these and they have good stuff for management and so forth. But there's a difference between it has good insight versus it is a model to follow. Personally, I think Tony Stark in the MCU offers some interesting insights into leadership. But that doesn't mean I think we should study the MCU in our management courses. Okay, that's the first one he says. Second one is he says, listen, all these other models, because they think that management and leadership is like the laws of physics, they are straight line. They're like, oh, the environment is always the same. Physics are physics are physics, and leadership is leadership is leadership. He says that's not the case at all. The world is freaking messy. It ignores all these old models, ignore the political, social, economic, and technological realities of the day. So you take today, political. We're in an election year. It's going to be a weird-ass year, even in the workplace. How you say things, how you state things, how you manage people, how you manage conflict in the workplace is going to be affected by the political realities of the day. Social is huge. The role that LGBTQ community plays, what that's going to mean to your bathrooms, what that's going to mean to your pronouns, and so forth. These are social issues that are affecting management theory. Economic, we just talked a whole lot about economic, and inflation has gone up, 10 to 12%, and yet pay has only gone up 3.5%, and that affects, as David aptly points out, that kind of affects your feeling about the job and about your manager. That's a reality. Technological realities, we could just go on and on and on, okay? So he says, listen, all this stuff is happening. You can't ignore it. Now, the third thing he points out is a lot of old management theories are based on what he believes are erroneous assumptions about behavior. We just kind of assume behavioral norms that haven't really even been challenged that much. I watched this video the other day that talked about all the crazy things that we used to believe, and we never even really, investigated, right? There's this thing out there that men have more teeth than women. And I don't know who believed this. I forget. I don't remember the details, so don't cite me. But it's kind of like it was just assumed that men have more teeth than women. Now, you can count the teeth, right? You can count them and find out it's the same damn number of teeth. But you don't need to count the teeth because we already know. Well, he felt that there were a lot of behavioral ideas out there about what motivates people that were just plain wrong. And the management theories were built on these erroneous beliefs about behavior. Christine, I like this my guy McGregor giving me the space to be a human affected by my reality. Oh, yeah. And in that regard, it's only going to get better. It's only going to get better. So, yeah, he's the real deal, even today in management theory. Okay. Now, another thing he points out is, okay, you're the boss. Fine. You have authority. That doesn't mean nearly as much as you might think it means. Your employees not only have really reasonable routes of limiting your authority, of using countermeasures, but they have authority themselves that you don't have or you may not have. So, for example, means of control, availability, and countermeasures. Let me just give you an example. David, you work and have worked in an industry that deals with some heavy equipment and with a lot of safety rules and so on and so forth. You are free to comment on anything I say. Of course you're free to comment, but if you want to add some insight or if you want to disagree, feel free to. A lot of industries that deal with a lot of heavy equipment and so forth, there's the book, there's the process manual, I forget what it's called, BOM, the book, whatever. There are specific processes and protocols you need to follow, primarily for safety. But then there's the way it's really done, okay? Because people innovate, people figure out efficiencies. Maybe if you want to get something done at work, you're supposed to fill out this form and submit it there and submit it here. Or you can just call Linda because Linda knows how to get this stuff done. Yes, that's not the actual process, but Linda will take care of you. Same thing comes when it just comes to keep things moving quickly, efficiently, and relatively safely. And since it keeps the company running nicely, management says, yeah, sure, looks fine. You really should follow this and you really should fix this, but we're going to keep things moving along. So what employees can do in terms of countermeasure, this is done a lot in unions, is they'll do a slowdown called by the book. And a by the book slowdown says, all right, from now on, we're going to do everything exactly the way the book says. Now, this is kind of clever because on one hand, they're supposed to do everything by the book. So management can't get mad that you're doing it by the book. Second is, I guarantee you, if you do it by the book, it's going to slow things down. It's just the way it's going to happen. So McGregor is pointing out that there's a lot of ways that employees can exert authority. But then he says, let's talk about this idea of authority. He says there is authority, but then there is also persuasion. Okay? So let's work through these a little bit. Let me first do this. And this is going to load us up here on the light bulbs. Why do you do what I ask you to do? Now, the first reason that comes to your mind should be the first reason you write down, because it's the most important reason. Any and all answers are correct, but don't make up bullcrap, right? I ask you to come to the live stream. I ask you to be a part of the chat. I ask you to do assignments. I ask you to hand them in on time. And lo and behold, you're doing all this crap. Why? Why do you do what I ask you to do? Okay, I have information you want, right? So I'll put that, let's say that's expertise. There's a reason why I use the word expertise, because it's going to relate to the theory here in a moment. So I have information you want. You want to succeed in the class, and I have the information and so on and so forth. What do you mean you want to succeed? Let's just say it, folks. Somebody out there, just be painfully truthful and say, what do you want? So that you can better help your future and so forth. Riches, want to make money. Yeah. All good, and I have the expertise to help you in all of those things. Okay, I'm going to just go ahead, be rich, right, Gardner? Want to learn, increase marketability. You guys are making all the right sounds. So I actually really like it, right? So, with all these that we've had, we're going to throw in a whole bunch more, get some more in there. I like the insane 130% of the grade. Okay, here's what I'm going to say, folks. And okay. You want the points. You want the points. This insane 130% of the grade. Yeah. And I really like, and thank you for, saying I want to do well, I want to get rich, I want expertise, and so on and so forth, and so on. But a major driver is I have the points. The reason you're doing all this and so forth, I'm pointing to the light bulbs, is because you love the points, right? This insane 130% of the grade, right? I reward that. I can reward you with points, which then translates to a good grade, which translates to a degree, which translates to a piece of paper that you can then take to an employer as evidence that you have learned this stuff, all that sort of good stuff. Okay. So now, let me use this as an example in what McGregor's talking about. Okay? Am I pointing the right way? Okay. So, formal power. Now, he says there's really kind of two kinds of power. There's the formal power and there's persuasion or personal power. Okay? The first type of formal power is, and Christy says, yep, the points, is legitimate or position power. So check this out. I'm the professor. You're the student. That is a hierarchy. And some organizations, Salt Lake Community College, which is a educational arm of USHE, Utah Higher Education State, Utah, they have said, Lon is the professor, you are the student. And if you go to Canvas, you can see your name, student, and you see my name, professor. Okay. This is just simply a legitimate line of authority. Okay? Therefore, I am in authority. I have power and influence because I am the professor. Now, I put all this in quotes because there's an important caveat after all this, right? Next one is I have reward power. I have the points. I've got the points. And you want the points. Sure, you want the points. So I say, listen, do as I ask, and you're going to be swimming in more points than you can use. And you're like, sign me up. I'll do that crap, right? So I can reward you with points. I also have coercive power, okay? I have coercive power in that I can take away something that you like. And you don't want me to take it away. So, for example, now, no, it's not points. I don't believe that I have the authority to take away points that you've already earned, just as in a company doesn't have the authority to take away money that you already earned, okay? But you like these engaging lectures. You like that I kind of feed this stuff up properly. You like that I provide the extra credit. And this isn't going to happen, but it's just an example, okay? But if you ticked me off to an apocalyptic degree, we could just change. So today we are going to talk about Douglas McGregor and his theories of leadership. If we turn to the reading, if I could do all that crap and you would be like, screw this class, I'm out of here, right? And it would mean a lot more work for you to get the points and so on and so forth. So that's my coercive power. Okay. But now here's the important caveat I want to point out. All these, what have you done, Lon? That would be awful, right? All these forms of formal power. Oh, hold on. I'm in the wrong. Let's see. I'm going to come over here. And I'm going to come over here. Okay. All these forms, Brittany, you're funny, of formal power are, this is what we think about when we think of power. When you think of bosses, you think of this formal power. But this is the most transient, ineffective form of power. Let me show you what I mean. Transient. Right now, you do this. Right now, I can reward you with points and so forth, and I can, do all this stuff. But you know what? In 6 weeks, all of this influence I have disappears, evaporates. My formal power as your professor will completely disappear. I will no longer be your professor. You will no longer need points. And you don't give a rat's patootie what I do online or don't do online. In fact, and this isn't I feel so sad. This is not a sad moment. In 6 weeks, you won't need any of this, and I won't be your professor. In 6 months, you won't remember me. You won't remember me. I literally, I kid you not, I can maybe name 3 professors during my bachelor's, master's, and PhD that I can remember. That's it. I even one time interviewed someone for an adjunct position here at Salt Lake Community College. And this person, while I was interviewing them, said, "Hey, you know what? You took my economics class when you were doing your MBA." And I was like, "Oh, son of a bitch, I don't remember that at all." So this isn't where my power, where real power as a manager is truly most effective, right? Real power is this: personal power, or what McGregor would call persuasion. Let me show you this. First of all, expert power. My expertise does not end in 6 weeks. So if you want help in your resume or in job interviews or how to use AI or how to start a company or how to do video or podcasting or how to do time management, these are areas in which I am an expert, okay? And so if you have an interest in these things, you're going to stick around. You will maintain contact with me. You'll subscribe to my newsletter. You'll subscribe to Nutshell Brainery, and maybe you'll come to some other live streams that I do because you want to stay connected in those areas of expertise. Another one is referent power. Referent power is when you admire someone and you want to emulate them, you want to be like them, you want to stay connected with them because they're just really awesome. It's in referent power that social media influencers get their power through referent power. People who do celebrity endorsements get their power through referent power. If there's this interesting thing in psychology called parasocial relationships. A parasocial relationship is when you have followed somebody in, say, social media or YouTube or podcasting or movies or TV. You followed their work for so long that you start to create this friendship with them. In our minds, we're friends with that person. And so then when you go off and meet the person and you're like, "Oh, right, I really love what you do. We ought to hang out sometime." And they're like, "Whoa, you need to back off." You're like, "What's the deal, bro? I'm your biggest fan." And it's like, because they don't share the same parasocial relationship. They don't know that we exist, right? Now, that all aside, that's founded in referent power. Colin says, seems like celebrities get all the endorsements they want. Yeah, whether they use the product or not. And then, and I'm sorry, that deserves a boom. The last one is network power. We'll use me as an example, although we can use you as well. I know people. I know a lot of people in business. I know a lot of people in HR. I know a lot of hiring managers. And so there's a good chance that if you're interviewing with a company, I know somebody or I know somebody who knows somebody at that company. And so if you want to prepare for the interview and so on and so forth, or if you want to start a company and you want to connect with somebody who knows legal or somebody who knows marketing, I know folks, I can connect you with people. And so that would be a form of network power, of the personal power or persuasion that could perhaps keep you around after the 6 weeks, right? So once again, when we often think about power and authority, we're thinking on the formal side, but that stuff isn't really all that effective. It's on the persuasion, personal side that we get the most effect, Okay. Let me see where we are in time. We are at 9:30. Okay. So let's keep going. Now, one of the things that McGregor also talks a lot about is what is often called situational leadership, which means, yes, okay, Christina, by the way, Christina just said, get in LinkedIn and let's all connect up with LinkedIn. I strongly recommend that. If you want to get in on my network and so forth, LinkedIn is a great way to do that. Situational leadership. Remember, every situation is different, okay? I'm not going to read this whole paragraph. We got to keep moving. But he just basically says we need to look at the circumstances and figure out how best to manage in circumstances. So, for example, just going through these real quick, when the audience member, say like an employee or a student, doesn't have the information they need. So let's say that later on you're going to do a final for this class. And you're going to be like, I don't know what's on this final. How am I supposed to study for this final? I'm kind of freaking out. I don't even remember half the stuff, that we studied at the beginning of the semester, and this stuff's going to be on the final. What do I do? That's an example of where you lack the information you need to be successful, which means it will be my job, and yes, I will do it. It will be my job to educate and communicate. This is what's on the final. Here's how the final is going to work. Let's go ahead and review the material. Let's get out some notes. Let's make sure that we're all set. So me as a good manager, I will understand when my employees, my students, need certain information to be successful. So that is a certain kind of situation in which communication is the best form of management. Sometimes people feel excluded, or they have a difficult time participating and so forth. So a good manager figures out ways to encourage participation and make sure that everybody is engaged and feel like they have a place in the community. Well, now the way I do that as a professor is with these damn light bulbs, right? Is by rewarding participation and telling people, you can put anything there, you're going to get points, it's great. Then, we have tons of people who contribute, who maybe in a classroom setting would be the one sitting over in the corner and just kind of keeping quiet, right? Which is fine, I get it. My wife is that person, all right? But a good manager really should find ways to get everybody involved and engaged. So I put in place participation and involvement incentives. There's also times where your employees or students, right? That would be you, Jaden, right? Yeah, and that's totally cool. You and my wife are cut from the same cloth there. Sometimes anxiety is high. And so like when you have to do the final paper and you're like, I don't know really what I'm supposed to do with the final paper, that is when a good manager, or in this case, a professor, would provide facilitation and support. In which case I say, hey, listen, don't worry about it. It's basically a reflection on steroids. Here's a prompt you can use. Send me an outline of what you have or the draft that you have right now. I'll give you some feedback, let you know that you're on the right track. And frankly, if when you hear from me, I tell you you're on the right track, be sure to do this, this, and this, then if you do those things, it's an A. Don't fret about it. And so that way, an employee or a student can kind of go, okay, I can chill. I know what is expected now. My anxiety is less. Sometimes resistors are in a position of power influence, right? And so this is when a good manager would need to kind of negotiate things, right? So, for example, let's say that you need some help on a paper and so forth, or you need to hand it in late, and I say, hey, listen, it's due on Tuesday. It's open until Thursday, but I don't accept it after Thursday. And you might go, okay, listen, how about if I hand in what I've got, which is really kind of garbage, but at least I've got something. Can I then resubmit after Thursday? In which case I'd say, you know what? Yeah, if you go ahead and submit what you have right now on time, I'll take something after the close date and get you some more points. So that's where we can kind of negotiate and come to an agreement. That way, I am still adhering to my policy in terms of late, but you are getting the opportunity you want to add to it and make it better, to improve it in the future. So that's a negotiation. Every once in a while, we need explicit and implicit coercion, right? It's when an organization is threatened, or either physically threatened or ethically threatened or threatened in terms of integrity or the value of the product, that a manager or a professor just needs to say, this is the way it is. We're not changing anything. So, for example, if a student hasn't attended class for 12 weeks out of the 16 weeks and they haven't handed in any of the assignments, they've been incommunicado, and 4 weeks before the end of the semester, they come to me and say, is there any way I can blah, blah, blah? The answer is no. It's no. Okay? Now, why would I say no? Because, I'm not a complete ass, right? 13.7% was the last quotient that I've been able to find in terms of my percentage of assholeness. But it's because if I just give away A's without the work, it's not fair to those people who did the work. It does not reflect well on the institution. It would harm the brand of the institution if we were just a diploma mill. And it would also be counter to the ethics that are set forth by USHE, and I can lose my job. So all those things in place basically says, hey, listen, if it's the end of the semester and you haven't handed in a single assignment, you're going to retake the class. By the way, when I was working on my bachelor's degree, I had to retake like 6 classes. So I'm not a stranger to this. But these are different situations require a different sort of manager to apply different sorts of skills. That's the whole idea with situational leadership. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to get up and stretch. I'm even going to do just a little bit of juggling because this is a big lecture, guys. This is rough, right? But we're going to finish with Frederick Taylor, all right? I was actually watching a video the other day of a juggler who I really like. She's actually local, it turns out, who is teaching a new trick that I need to work on and learn, but haven't done so yet. Get up and stretch, kind of rub your eyes, get a drink of water, do your bio break, do whatever you need there for a moment or two. We'll get started at, say, like 9:40, and then we'll wrap it up with Taylor. Yeah, I'm just looking at the comments here. Yeah. Just added you, Christina. Good. That's going to get. And add me too, Christina, Jocelyn. Add me. So that way I can help you folks out when you're doing your job searches. I have good friends and former co-workers, and sometimes good friends who are former co-workers at all kinds of companies out here, big name companies and small companies and so forth. So if you ever need a recommendation, already did. Good, Jocelyn. Excellent, excellent. Okay, let's go ahead and get into Frederick Taylor. That's right. Yeah, a few semesters ago. Let's do Frederick Taylor. So, remember, I was saying all the other guys we talked about, Henri Fayol and Douglas McGregor, especially Douglas McGregor, these are humanists, right? They're saying, hey, dear manager, you're dealing with human beings and you have power and authority and they have power and authority. And you better treat them right. They'll treat you right. We're all in this boat together. Frederick Taylor says, to hell with that. Well, then why are we covering him? Because this guy has been so influential, as influential, if not more so, than Douglas McGregor. So let me tell you about him. He's a mechanical engineer by trade, and he looks at every problem as a mechanical engineer. He saw no standardization, workers content to do what just seemed best. Everybody was doing things their own way. Founded the idea of scientific management and time and motion studies, okay? He's the one who took division of labor to an insane umpteenth degree, which we're about to see. By the way, if you can't read this little quote of his, I will read the quote. Hardly a competent workman can be found who does not devote a considerable amount of time to studying just how slowly he can work and still convince his employer that he's going at a good pace. He was not a friend to employees. He did not like employees. He thought, his motto was that, managers think, employees do. So this whole idea of employees taking initiative and figuring out the best way to do things, that was the last thing he wanted. He wanted to find the very best way to do things, scientifically proven best way to do things, and make everybody do it that way. Now, you might say, how awful, how horrible, but we do this stuff today. So now, let's talk about this Gilbreth and the bricks. It's going to be in the test, it's going to be in the reading, and so on and so forth. Here's the thing. Gilbreth tells the story about how he used Frederick Taylor's time and motion studies to make bricklaying more efficient. Now, it's kind of funny when Taylor tells the story of Gilbreth, it sounds like this hokey sort of, seminar testimonial sort of thing, right? Nevertheless, the principles that we care about are really in this story. For hundreds of years, there had been so little or no improvement made in implements and materials used in this trade, bricklaying, nor in fact in the method of laying bricks. In spite of the millions of men who have practiced this trade, no great improvement has been evolved for many generations. And that makes sense. Everybody learns and everybody does it. Bricklaying is bricklaying is bricklaying. You got a wheelbarrow, you have a trowel, you have a tray, you mortar, brick. It's straightforward. Mr. Frank B. Gilbreth, a member of our society who had himself studied bricklaying in his youth, became interested in the principles of scientific management and decided to apply them to the art of bricklaying. Okay, let's see how this turned out. He made an intensely interesting analysis and study of each movement of the bricklayer and one after another eliminated all unnecessary movements and substituted fast for slow motions. He experimented with every minute element in which any way affects the speed and the tiring of the bricklayer. Okay, this is important. This is what time motion studies are all about. The researcher will literally watch somebody do their job and then analyze each and every piece of how they do the job, all the way down to how do you grip the brick? Are you picking it up this way? Do you use a hand tool? Do you use this? And how do you set the trowel? And how do you hold the trowel? And how big is the trowel? Is it big? Is it small? And so forth. And how is the trowel shaped? And how do you use it given its shape? And they are looking at every single piece. And the whole idea is if they can find any motion that is wasteful, they take it out. Or if they find any aspect of laying the brick or doing anything else, they amend it and change it to try to make it faster and more efficient. He developed the exact position which each of the feet of the bricklayer should occupy with relation to the wall, the mortar box, and the pile of bricks, and so made it unnecessary for him to take a step or two toward the pile of bricks and back again each time a brick is laid. He studied the best height for the mortar box and pile and brick pile, and then designed a scaffold with a table on it upon which all the materials are placed so to keep the bricks, the mortar, and the man and the wall in their proper relative positions. We're talking basically a unit that moves along the wall. Okay? Through all this minute study of the motions to be made by the bricklayer in laying bricks under standard conditions, Mr. Galbraith has reduced his movements from 18 motions per brick to 5, and in one case as low as 2 motions per brick. Okay, you guys see this all the time. The reason fast food is because of this. Everything is set up perfectly. Who here has ever worked a job where it was kind of an assembly line thing? You know, fast food is very assembly line. When you go into Chipotle, it just kind of moves along and it's in order. Each person is responsible for this section. They ask these questions and it just kind of goes along. Who's worked in an environment like this? Even spray bottles and so on, they figure out exactly how much product of the condiment to, expel, to squirt out for each squeeze. Home Depot freight, great example. Jaden, you've had a lot of jobs like this, no doubt. And just as I knew you would, broke all the light bulbs there. Used to deliver food at DoorDash, picking things up at places. Yes, this reminds me of Subway and the assembly, and making a sandwich. Yes, you guys get it. You almost don't realize how much this has affected things. Even the design, the interior of your car. You can turn on the turn signal, you can operate you can operate just about everything in your car with just small motions. Nothing is wasted, right? And in some cases, they've automated motions, such as with the headlights. I don't have to turn my headlights on, they're automated. That's an example of how they will eliminate unnecessary steps, okay? So Gardner asks a really good question. When Ford set up his assembly line, Taylor was his hero. Frederick Taylor consulted with Ford in setting up the assembly line with this in mind. So great point, okay? Oh, the chicken line. How interesting. Chicken line. Okay, so now once again, let's read this, but then let's look at what he is saying. Don't worry, we're almost done. It is highly likely that many times during all the years of individual bricklayers have recognized the possibility of eliminating each one of these unnecessary motions. In other words, over the centuries that we've been laying bricks, no doubt some smart bricklayers have said, that's pointless, that's useless, that's redundant. He acknowledges this. But even if in the best he did invent each one of Galbraith's improvements, no bricklayer alone increased the speed through their adoption, because it will be remembered that in all cases, several bricklayers work together in a row, and the wall all around the building must go up at the same rate of speed. No one bricklayer, then, can work much faster than the one next to him, nor has any one workman the authority to make other men cooperate with him and do faster work. So he's saying, listen, bricklayers have probably figured this out already. But first of all, even if you are a bricklayer who wants to be really efficient, it doesn't really help you, because you have other bricklayers on the right and left of you, and that wall needs to go up at a constant speed. And so it's really, you're going to go as fast as the slowest person. When you work in an assembly line or work on a team on a physical structure, you will go as fast as the slowest person. And furthermore, you're all equals, so you can't have one bricklayer tell the slowest person, hey, we're going to change the steps and we're going to do this, that, and the other, because that person will say, screw you, I'm doing the bricklaying the way I do the bricklaying. So Galbraith's big thing, not Galbraith's, I apologize. Taylor's big thing is it has to come from the top. Managers have to set the expectations. They have to set the speed. And the employees just do what the managers say, okay? It is only through enforced standards of methods, enforced adoption of best implements and working conditions, and enforced cooperation that this faster work can be assured. And the duty of enforcing the adoption of standards and of enforcing this cooperation rests with the manager alone. So, yeah. So you kind of see how, McGregor and Taylor are coming at this from different directions, right? These are human beings. We need to manage them, so on and so forth. Taylor is like, no, they're just basically carbon-based pieces of the machine that are doing things that the machine can't do yet. So we need to design and engineer a way for them to work. And this is what's going to get the best work. Now, to Taylor's credit, he actually did advise that you pay these workers really, really, really well. But it's not because he was pro-worker. It's because he says once they learn how to do it and they get really good, they're going to make a lot of money for you. And if they leave, you have to train somebody else, which is going to bring down your production. And furthermore, when they leave, they can take their skills somewhere else and help your competitors. So it's best to pay them really well and keep them around. All right. Good for him. We're not going to worry about this. We are not going to worry about that. We'll end with a quote from Taylor. In the past, the man has been first. In the future, the system must be first. You just remember that quote as AI starts to come about more and more in the future. You did it! That was a long lecture. That was an hour and a half. And I know the class technically is supposed to go on for another 20 minutes or so, but you and I both know it takes a hell of a lot of work to stay focused in an online class like this. So I like to try to move through it. Same routine. Let's send me an email saying, Je suis là, ici. I'm here, and I'll take care of you there. We've only got 2 more of these things, I think. Yeah, 2. Yeah, 2 more lectures. So, and then, of course, we will prepare for the final, and we'll do all that sort of stuff. But we're getting toward the end. Fantastic work today on the discussion. And as always, it makes my job so much better, more enjoyable, and easier. So thank you. As always, I will stick around. And if you have any questions or comments or anything, I'm here. Otherwise, Colin, thank you very much. David, thanks. Take off, and we'll see you next week. We'll see you, Gardner. Have a good one, Christina. We'll see you, Jaden, Rebecca. Brittany, you bet. We'll see you, Brittany. All right, looks like everyone's taken off. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and end the stream, and we'll see you next week.